Alright, for today's build, practically every YouTuber has made a video on this, but I just got my Ager Scepter Catalyst, so now it's my turn. This Warlock build will allow you to get your super very fast, and use the Ager Scepter Catalyst pretty much infinitely as long as you have ammo. First I'll go over the build, then some testing, and finally some gameplay. Starting with the subclass, I'm using Glacier Harvest, so when I freeze a combatant, it'll spawn Stasis shards. I'm also using Ice Flare Bolts, so when I shatter a target, it spawns Seekers that track out and freeze other targets. Whisper of Fissures increases the damage and burst size of Stasis. Whisper of Chains gives me resist when I'm standing next to a Stasis crystal, or standing next to a frozen enemy. Whisper of Bonds makes it so when I defeat a frozen target, I get super energy. And Whisper of Conduction, it makes it so the Stasis shards track to me. The exotic armor piece I'm using is Mantle of Battle Harmony. This makes it so when I get kills with Ager Scepter, it charges my super, and if I get kills with Ager Scepter while I have full super, then it increases its damage. But this part of the perk won't be used very often. The weapon we're using is of course Ager Scepter, and the catalyst is needed for this build. When you hold reload, you drain the super energy, overflowing the magazine and empowering it, so basically you just do increased damage at the cost of super energy. Going over the mods, I have Font of Wisdom. When I pick up an elemental well that matches my subclass, it increases my super recharge rate. I also have 2 stacks of hands-on to give me increased super on melee kills. I have Font of Might. When I pick up an elemental well that matches my subclass, it increases the damage to weapons that match that element as well. I have High Energy Fire to give me a damage boost when I'm charged with light. Here's the most important mod, Elemental Shards. This turns our Stasis shards into elemental wells, so all the other mods will get triggered when I pick up a Stasis shard. Finally, we have Elemental Charge, so when I pick up a Stasis shard, it counts as an elemental well and makes me charged with light. Once I have my super, I can activate the catalyst. It drains about 25% of my super. When I get kills, it refunds the super that is constantly being drained. So as long as I'm killing enemies, I have infinite super and I have infinite damage buff. Now time for damage testing. Base is 1722. Testing with High Energy Fire. High Energy Fire gives a 20% damage buff. Testing with Font of Might. Font of Might gives a 25% damage buff. One thing to note about Font of Might is the buff doesn't always show up on the side of your screen. As there's so many buffs active, it often gets pushed away. But it's still there, we can tell by the damage. High Energy Fire and Font of Might gives a 50% damage buff. The Catalyst gives an 80% damage buff. The Catalyst with High Energy Fire gives a 116% damage buff. The Catalyst with Font of Might gives a 125% damage buff. All the buffs combined give 170% damage buff. For gameplay, I'm going to be running a Legend Lost Sector. This build tends to work better in longer activities where you get your super more often, but it works pretty decent in a Lost Sector.